Shelby Eisler and Jim Hightower and Chuy Garcia and Raul Grijalva and Foster the People and Evan Berger and Tara and Pete D'Alessandro for all of their work tonight and for all of their work during this campaign. Well, it turns out that tonight is the last rally of the campaign. And I want to very sincerely, on behalf of Jane and myself and my staff, thank the people of Iowa for welcoming us into their state, their beautiful state. Iowa has shown my family and my staff incredible hospitality and warmness, and we appreciate it very much. This is a beautiful, beautiful state, and it's been an honor to have the opportunity to campaign in it. Another thing that I want to say about the people of Iowa, and I've been deeply impressed by this, I think Iowans understand that they have a very unique role to play in the presidential process. And I believe that they take that role very, very seriously. I think there are many people who have come out to our rallies, have gone to Secretary Clinton's rallies, Governor O'Malley's rallies. They are listening very carefully about the choice that they want. They accept that responsibility that is given to them. And all of you in Iowa should be very, very proud of that. When we began our campaign 9 months ago, we had no money, no political organization, and very, very little name recognition. In fact, a poll done by the Des Moines Register 8 months ago had us 41 points behind. We have come a long way in 8 months. Today, as we prepare for the caucus tomorrow night, we have 15,000 volunteers throughout the state of Iowa. I want to thank them all. Many of them have worked incredibly hard, day in and day out, knocking on doors and making phone calls, and I thank you very much. And the reason that we have the momentum and the excitement is because of what you have done. Now, I want to tell you something else, though, which is very interesting. When we began this campaign, as I mentioned, we had no money. And we had to make a choice. What the pundits were saying is, look, in this day and age, when you need hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more than $1 billion, to run for president, what the pundits and the experts said is there is only one way to raise that money, and that is to have a super PAC.
No! No!
And we said, no way. We ain't gonna do it. Our opponent yesterday announced that she had received some $45 million for her super PAC. We announced that we received $0 for our super But this is what we also announced. We announced that we have received throughout this campaign, and this is so unbelievable, never in a million years would I have thought this possible. We have received up to now 3.2 million individual contributions. And that is more contributions than any candidate up until this point in a campaign in the history of the United States.
Burning!
tax. What they do is they go to wealthy people's homes and they sit down with a dozen people and we leave with $3 million, $5 million, $10 million. These folks can contribute as much as they want. So I'm proud to tell you that our average contribution is $27. To paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. A campaign of the people is that, and this is an important point to understand, and I think I'm the only campaign candidate who has ever said this. No president of the United States, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can bring about the changes that we need in this country today. The rebuilding of a disappearing middle class, dealing with income and wealth inequality, dealing with climate change, dealing with the corrupt campaign finance system, and all of the others. No president can do it alone because the powers that be, Wall Street, which has endless supplies of money, endless. Corporate America, whose greed has helped to destroy the middle class. The corporate media, who tells us what we are supposed to believe and what we're supposed to hear. And large campaign donors. These people together have so much power that no president alone can do what has to be done. And that is why we need a political revolution. That is why we need tens of millions of people to stand up and say loudly and clearly, enough is enough! Of course I'm here to try to win tomorrow night, try to win the Democratic nomination, try to win the general election. But more important, and part of that process, are millions of people coming together, black and white and Latino, gay and straight, male and female. People who have immigrated into this country. We will not allow Donald Trump's and the other...
Down with Trump!
We will not allow them to divide us up. We will stand together. Together because we know that this is a pivotal moment in American history. And most of us understand that it is too late for establishment politics and establishment economics. Together, we are going to tell the billionaire class they cannot have it all. Now, people say the American people are angry. Well, you know what? I'm angry. And the American people have a right to be angry. They have a right to be angry because they are working, in many cases, longer hours for lower wages. People are working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to cobble together some income and some health care. People are worried about the future for their kids. They're worried about their parents. And meanwhile, almost all of the new income and wealth in this country is going to the top 1%. What this campaign is about is coming together and saying something really radical. You want a radical idea? Here's a radical idea and together we're going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Together, we are going to put an end to the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality that exists in America today. America is not about the top 1/10% owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. America is not about 20 of the wealthiest people, 20 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million. America is not about one family, the Walton family, owning more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. That is not what the American economy should be. That is a rigged economy. I want to tell you something, if I might, about one manifestation of a rigged economy. You know, you hear a lot of Republicans running around the country talking about welfare abuse, how poor people are abusing, taking advantage of the welfare system. Sure. Well, let me tell you who the major welfare recipient in America is. Turns out that it is the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America. And the reason for that is this family that owns Walmart pays its workers wages that are so low that many of those workers are forced to go on Medicaid, they're forced to go on food stamps, they are forced to go into subsidized housing. You pay taxes to provide food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing to the workers of the wealthiest family in America. So I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. Subsidize a multi-billionaire family. Now, when we talk about our economy, it is clear to almost everybody that wages in America are just too low. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We've got to raise it to a living wage, $15 an hour. I would hope that every man in this room will stand with the women and fight for pay equity. There's no rational economic reason why women are making 79 cents on the dollar. It is old-fashioned sexism, and together we're going to end it. It is not just the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality. It is not just that millions of workers are working for horrendously low wages. It is also the fact that real unemployment in this country is close to 10%, and youth unemployment is off the charts. I asked some economists a while ago to tell me what youth unemployment really was for high school graduates. This is what they said. For kids who are white, real unemployment was 33%. For Latino kids, 36%. For African American kids, 51%.
Oh my God.
That is an outrage. That is unacceptable. But let me just connect some dots here. If anybody here thinks there is not a correlation between that horrific rate of youth unemployment and the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, you would be missing a very important thing. So are you ready for another radical idea?
Yeah!
We're going to invest in education and jobs for our kids. We're going to invest in education and jobs for our kids, not jails and incarceration. Here in Iowa, you got a whole lot of candidates for president running all over your state. Probably can't get a cup of coffee without running into somebody who's running for president. And many of the Republicans who are out there running for president, they talk about family values. You all know what they mean by family values? What they mean is that no woman in this room, no woman in this state, no woman in this country should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. What they mean by family values is we should defund Planned Parenthood. I believe we should expand funding. Is to tell our gay brothers and sisters that they should not be able to get married. I disagree. Now, Jane and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 beautiful kids, and I think we got my 2 daughters here. And we believe in family values. In fact, there's nobody who believes in family more than Jane does.
Love you, Jane!
Our family values are a little bit different than Republican family values. Just a little bit. When we talk about family values, what we believe is that it is imperative that we end the international disgrace of the United States being the only major country on earth that doesn't provide paid family and medical leave. Let me tell you how absurd and bad it is. Today in Iowa, today in Vermont, today all over America, women are having beautiful babies. And for those of you who are parents, you know what an extraordinary day that is. It's a pretty big day for the baby as well. But if that mom is a working class woman or low income woman, that mother will have to separate herself from her newborn baby a week or 2 weeks after birth because she has to go back to work in order to bring enough money to take care of the family. That is not a family value. That is the opposite of a family value. That is why together the United States will join the rest of the industrialized world. We're going to have 3 months paid family and medical leave. When we talk about real unemployment being 10% and youth unemployment being off of the charts, it is a no-brainer to say that we must have a massive federal jobs program to put our people back to work. We should be hiring teachers, not firing teachers. Hiring nurses and doctors, not firing. Our water systems in Flint, Michigan comes to mind, but it's not the only one. Our wastewater plants, our rail system, our levees, our dams, our airports in many parts of this country are disintegrating, need massive investment. We can create 13 million decent paying jobs rebuilding our infrastructure, and that's what we have to do. Every day I am criticized, well, every hour I'm criticized. They say, hey, that's a great idea, Bernie. You're going to create 13 million jobs. You're going to rebuild the infrastructure. How are you going to pay for that? Well, I will tell you how we're going to pay for it. Right now, you have major corporations in this country making billions of dollars a year in profit, who stash their profits in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and other tax havens. And in a given year, some of these multinational corporations don't pay a nickel in federal income tax. So, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take away that loophole. They are going to pay taxes. We're going to use that.
Tax Wall Street!
To rebuild our infrastructure. And when we talk about the economy, let me talk about the elephant in the room that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And that is the greed, the recklessness, and the illegal behavior on Wall Street. This is an issue, my friends, that we just cannot run away from. And I know what the power of Wall Street is. When I was in the House representing Vermont, I was on the House Banking Committee. Wall Street spent billions of dollars in lobbying and campaign contributions in order to get deregulated. And they said to Congress, trust us. We are honorable people. Get the government off of our backs. Let us have investor banks merge with commercial banks, merge with insurance companies. It'll be a great thing for America. I worked as hard as I could to prevent that from happening. It happened. And then a few years later, Wall Street told us what it means to do their thing. And it turns out that their greed and their illegal behavior drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Millions of our fellow Americans lost their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. That's the reality. And it turned out that when we allowed Wall Street to do their thing, it turned out that their thing was fraud.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you a story. In this campaign, we are taking on the big issues. And we are taking on the entire establishment. And let me tell you one story which kind of brings together what this whole campaign is about. That is, we are talking about a rigged economy, a corrupt campaign finance system, and a broken criminal justice system. Here's the story. A few weeks ago, Goldman Sachs, one of the largest financial institutions on Wall Street, paid a $5 billion fine to the US government. They paid that fine because they essentially acknowledged that they were operating a fraudulent procedure by which they were selling subprime mortgage packages that were worthless. Go see The Big Short, it's a good film. That's what they were doing, and now they paid a $5 billion fine, okay? This is called Wall Street fraud. Then, when you talk about political power, understand that Goldman Sachs, along with other financial institutions, spent zillions of dollars on campaign contributions and speakers' fees. And the other thing that they do is they have a revolving door. You all know what a revolving door is? It means folks come from Wall Street to work in the government representing Wall Street, and they go back to Wall Street. Turns out, over the last 25 years, Goldman Sachs has given this country 2 secretaries of the Treasury and dozens of other high-ranking officials. Now, here is the last point that I want to make in that story. If a kid in Iowa or a kid in Vermont gets caught today possessing marijuana, that kid will get a police record that will stay with him for the rest of his life. Not a joke, serious business. And yet, here you have Goldman Sachs paying a fine of $5 billion for ripping off the American people and doing enormous damage to the lives of millions of our fellow Americans. Not one executive on Wall Street has been prosecuted. That is a broken criminal justice system. And I think it is high time to restore justice to our justice system. Serious issues facing this country, there is one issue that impacts all other issues, and that has to do with a disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. We all know what that's about. And that's what, by a 5-4 decision, what the Supreme Court said is that, okay, billionaires, you own much of the economy, now you can buy the United States government. And that is exactly what they are trying to do today. You have a handful of billionaires, the Koch brothers, and a few of their billionaire friends in this campaign cycle are prepared to spend $900 billion to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. $900 million. When you have one family spending more money than either the Democratic or Republican Party, my friends, that is not democracy. That is oligarchy, and together we're going to end that.
Am I in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yay, woo.
About our needs as a people. Everybody knows that we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. We did 30 years ago, we don't today. It is beyond my comprehension that there are hundreds of thousands of bright young people in America today who have the ability, the desire, and the qualifications to go to college, but they can't go to college for one reason. Their families lack the funds. To my mind, when we talk about public education in America in the year 2016, it is not good enough to just talk about first grade through 12th grade. The world has changed. When we talk about public education, in my view, we must fight to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And when we talk about higher education, we also have got to end the absurdity of millions of Americans struggling with outrageously high levels of student debt. Anybody here dealing with student debt? The other day, I was here in Iowa. Young man raised his hand. It was a small meeting. Young man raised his hand and said, I went to college for 2 years, $60,000 in debt. A few weeks ago, talked to another guy, 29, married, 2 kids, working in sustainable energy, not making a lot of money. And this is what he said. He said, I am paying $90,000 in debt. He's paying 53% of his income in student debt. Talk to a 55-year-old guy in Nevada. He has been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than he was when he took it out. Talked to a woman in New Hampshire, and she said, I am not just paying off my daughter's student debt, I'm paying off mine as well. Now, stop and think for a moment. Our job is to create a system where all Americans can get as much education as they need. Education is a good thing. People should not be penalized for trying to get an education. What we are going to do as part of the same legislation is substantially lower student debt by allowing people the opportunity to get the lowest possible interest rates they can find. Now, people say that's really great. You know, you're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. You're going to substantially lower student debt in America, and you're going to pay for it. It's an expensive proposition, and I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. We are going to pay for it by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street crashed, the middle class bailed them out. Now it is their time to help the middle class. When we talk about our responsibilities as adults, as parents, grandparents, nothing more important, well, I can think of, than making certain we leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our future generations. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. Climate change is already causing devastating problems throughout this world. We have a moral responsibility to the children, to future generations, to have the courage to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. Labor Committee in the Senate that helped write the Affordable Care Act. And the Affordable Care Act has done a lot of good things. We have done away with this obscenity called pre-existing conditions. We have added over 17 million Americans to the ranks of the insured, and we have done away with policies that force women to pay more than men for their health care needs. But here is an important point. Despite the gains of the Affordable Care Act, 29 million people in America still have no health insurance. Many people here in this room and in this country are underinsured. What does that mean? It means you're paying high deductibles and high copayments. Anybody here paying high deductibles and high copayments? What that means, if you're paying a $5,000 deductible, $10,000, talked to a guy the other day, $13,000 for a family of 6. What it means is if you don't have a lot of money and you have a high deductible, you know what happens? You don't go to the doctor when you should. And when you don't go to the doctor when you should, you get sicker. And I've talked to doctors in Vermont, all over this country. People are walking into doctors' offices very, very sick. And sometimes they're walking in too late. And the doctor says, why didn't you come here 6 months ago? And they say, well, I didn't have any health insurance, I have high deductible. We lose some of those people. Thousands of people in this country die every year because they don't go to the doctor when they should, because they can't afford to pay for that doctor's visit. Now, every major country on earth, United Kingdom, Germany, France, all of Scandinavia, Canada, every major country on earth guarantees health care to all of their people as a right. So let me be very clear, because I have been criticized for this. So let me say it for the umpteenth time. If people want to criticize me, they can. I believe that health care is a right, not a privilege. I believe, along with the nurses here, who are academic issue. It's not some ideological issue. They were trained to save lives. They were trained to deal with disease. They were trained to try to create a healthy society. But what they understand is they cannot do their job, the job that they are entrusted, be entrusted to them when people have no health insurance or are underinsured. They can't do their job when 1 out of 5 Americans can't afford to buy the prescription drugs that their doctors prescribe because they can't afford the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs. And that is why I, along with the nurses, we believe that this country must move forward to a Medicare for all single-payer program. And not only should we provide comprehensive health care to all of our people, but when we do that, we address another issue, and that is in our country, we are spending almost 3 times more than the British, who guarantee health care to their people, 50% more than the French guarantee health care to all their people, far more than the Canadians. If we move to a Medicare for all single-payer system, we guarantee health care to all, and we save middle-class families thousands of dollars a year on health care. Friends, there are 11 million people in our country who are undocumented. Many of them are living in the shadows. Many of them are living in fear.
Miami loves you.
And let me tell you that no matter what your view may be on immigration, it is not acceptable that we have people like Donald Trump using racist and xenophobic terms against Mexicans or against Muslims.
Vote for Trump!
In a democracy, people can disagree on any issue, including immigration. But we will not accept people demonizing entire people. Many of us remember what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and that is, we judge people based on their character, not the color of their skin, not where they come from. That is the vision that we must continue. By the way, let me also say a word about criminal justice. And that is, together we are going to tackle institutional racism. What I know makes many of us tired of seeing videos on television of unarmed people, often African Americans, being shot and killed. There is a lot of work to be done, and this country faces a lot of very, very serious problems. But I believe that as Americans, when we come together, when we are prepared to stand up to the powers that be, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. A few weeks ago, I was in Birmingham, Alabama. Jane and I were there, and we went to the church. Some of you may remember there was a church in Birmingham where 4 little children were killed when some segregationist bombed the church. Remember that? Yeah. Well, it turned out I learned something when I was there. What I learned was that that month alone, there were 14 bombings in Birmingham, Alabama. 14 bombings.
What?
In other words, the African American community there was being terrorized by racists and segregationists. But the people there had the courage, the extraordinary courage to say, no, all of those bombs are not going to stop us. We are going to go forward to destroy segregation. We are going to get the right to vote. And when you think back on that, you know what courage is. I dig back historically country, they were third-class citizens. There was divorce, they didn't get any property, they couldn't vote, they couldn't do the jobs they wanted to do. Those are men's work, not women's work. What did women do? Women and their male allies said, no, we're not going to have women as second-class citizens in this country. We're going to stand up and we are going to fight back. And we have seen some real progress in this country in overcoming sexism. We've got a long way to go. We have made progress because all of us understand something very profound. Real change never comes from the top on down. It always comes from the bottom. Will have a place in American history, and I'll tell you why. 8 years ago, a young United States Senator came here to campaign. And what people were saying is, you know what, Iowa is a virtually all-white state, and this black guy, he doesn't have a chance. But what the people of Iowa did is said, hey, we're going to judge this guy not by the color of his skin, but by his ideas and his character. And you allowed Barack Obama to win the caucus. It's a very important point, and what was revolutionary about what Iowa did is not whether you like Obama or you don't like Obama. That is not the point. The point is that the people of Iowa look beyond skin color to make their judgment. And that was revolutionary, and that is an important place in history. Now, I think back right now, if we were in this room 15 years ago, somebody stood up and he said, you know, I think that gay marriage will exist in 50 states in the Union. Somebody else would have said, what are you smoking? And what did happen? The gay community, with their allies in the straight community, said, you know what, people